Hey guys, it's Sarah. If you enjoy The Strange and Unusual, please like and subscribe. And if you're usual here and you enjoy my videos, thank you so much for watching. This is just kind of a thrown together video because I did this Facebook Live. It's just me reading stories, and I hope you guys enjoy. It's off Reddit. I gotta dive on in. I was born and raised in South Carolina. I've always lived in rural places, so I never had been scared of them before. But they are all still creepy to me, which is something I like. When I was 8, we moved out of my childhood home to live with my grandparents. They had a house built in a nice neighborhood in the middle of the woods. Me and my sisters loved living there, and we explored the woods quite often. Hello. One day, my sister Carly went somewhere with our mom, and our dad was at work. Me and my sister Katie probably should have stayed inside, but no one was home, and that would have been boring. We went into the woods and explored areas we hadn't yet discovered. About an hour into our hike, we started up a steep hill when we found something. It was a large spinal disc. That didn't frighten us at first. There was a nearby farm with cattle. But as soon as we started on our journey, we found a footprint. It was the strangest footprint I had ever seen in my life. It was the shape of a chicken's foot, but it was massive, bigger than my own even. At this point, we started to feel unsettled, but we kept walking anyway. After a few minutes came the part that really frightened me. We heard what sounded like the scream of a large animal. It was loud, bone-chilling. Me being so young, I started to cry in fear. We immediately started running home, but the screams just kept getting louder and louder. Eventually we got home, but we didn't tell our mom that what had happened. She wouldn't let us hike anymore if we did. This was the type thing that would deter most people from exploring again, but not me. As I got older, I became obsessed with creepy stuff. I constantly read SCP stories, researched cryptozoology, and listened to scary stories. These days I explore with the intention of finding things I shouldn't. Me and my best friend love exploring and constantly going places we shouldn't. I'm 15 now, so with that attitude, I'm bound to be in you for you. Wish me luck. So now I'm going on to the next story. This is a story my dad told me one weekend. My dad and his friend, who I will call Mike for privacy, were on a 30-foot boat in the Cape Fear river fishing. They had decided to stay on the boat for the weekend and try to catch something at night. It was about 12 a.m. And my dad was up looking over the side of the boat. The boat had the lights on the side of it so you could see if something was near you. And the lights might have saved his life. While he was looking, a 40-foot long silhouette came up to the side of the boat and hit it hard enough to push my dad and his friend to the floor of the boat. My dad then ran to the back of the boat and said it was circling the boat. Mike went to see. Mike went to see what had knocked them, and when he said what he saw, he ran to the steering wheel and got them out of there. The reason this scares my dad is because things in the river usually only get 13 to 18 feet. And soon I will be fishing on that river, and I hope to never meet that creature up close. I'm sorry for messing up my speaking, but the way they kind of wrote that was a little bit distorted, and it was kind of hard to read. Hello. I am on the third story. The fourth story is going to be the longest one I'm reading. I was in 7th grade, me and my friend John, for the story. John came over to spend the night. He was bored of playing video games, so we went into a deep forest. We went into the dark cave, and the night hit, so we started fire and called our parents and told them that we were going to be spending the night in the cave that we found. John fell asleep first, so I tried to sleep, but I heard an ear-curdling screech. Just then, John woke up, and I told him what happened. Then we ran out of there and looked back and saw something 8 feet tall and deep glowing white eyes, no facial features. It was right behind us, running full sprint. We ran, and right behind us, we ran until we found the house. We locked all the doors, and we heard banging. The next day, we went back to the cave and saw something that we will never forget. It was blood and a deer carcass there. We never went back. He spent the night there 3 weeks later with all doors locked. We were playing video games home with my brother, and we hear a large bang on the door. My brother got the gun, and he saw the creature from the cave. He called the cops. When the cops came, it was gone. Of course it was. Of course it was gone. Alright. I am saving this best for last. And this one bothers me the most. So, I work at a freight company in Southwest Ohio on third shift. I am the yard guy, which means I move trailers and box trucks around the yard. I put them into the docks. We have 2 poorly lit lots in the back of the building that I frequently have to walk back to, aptly named Backlot 1 and Backlot 2. This is where the semi-trucks are kept for moving the trailers. I usually keep a headphone in one of my ears to listen to podcasts or music. The other ear is left open so I can hear if people call me over the radio. Anyways, there have been some coyote sightings on the property lately. This is odd because we are in a warehouse district virtually void of any woodland. I personally have seen one coyote once or twice in Backlot 1. The first time I was in my car driving around the lot to look for trailers left behind, I spotted it out of my driver's side window, some ways off. It seems like a normal coyote. No big deal. The second time I saw the coyote, I was getting out of the semi to hook up a trailer to move. Immediately as I stepped out of my truck, I felt a presence as if someone was directly behind me. I turned and noticed what looked to be a large reddish dog staring at me, but from afar, maybe 50 yards away. As I looked closer, I recognized it as the coyote I had spotted before. It was just much larger than I remembered. I also took coyotes for being skittish animals. I didn't think that they would stare you down like this, but I shrugged it off as misjudgment of size from the first time, some territorial behavior. This was around a month or so ago, and I hadn't seen the coyote again until today. When I was out moving trailers around this morning, I felt that presence again. But this time, that feeling of being watched was amplified by a sense of dread. As if there was a predator actively hunting me. Look, sometimes I can be paranoid. Some of the podcasts that I listen to certainly don't help with that. But I know this about myself. I tried to put it out of my mind, turned on some music, and went about my business. Fast forward to around 2 a.m. Dropped off one of the trailers. I picked up the radio to call my boss. Anybody call for me? He responded simple, nope. Like I said before, I get a bit paranoid, but that voice was not imagined. I heard it. This was enough to make me turn off my music until I was done moving trailers in the yard. When I finally finished, it was around 3:45 a.m. I had to take this semi back to lot 2 to drop it off in the driver that comes in later. I finished backing the semi to its spot when I turned the engine off and opened the door. I heard a long, drawn-out voice go, "My Michael. It sounded a lot like my boss calling me on the walkie-talkie, but more like it was coming through an old record player or a phonograph. Not having my music on, I knew right away this was not my boss over the radio. The voice had come up from directly in front of me. I looked up to see that the coyote staring at me. It was a good 75 yards from me at this point, but it sounded so close. I thought. The scariest part was it looked like it was smiling, distorting its features so that the edges of its mouth curved to look more human-like. I stared back at the coyote and did only one thing that came to my mind. I yelled at it. Get out, go on, get out of here. The coyote's reaction was something I wouldn't have expected. It began to stand on its hind legs. As it did this, I could hear bones crackling, flesh being contorted and displaced. Its shape became slightly more human, with the exception of its legs and head, but paws dangled from its arms where its hands should be. As it's reaching an upright position, I had already closed the door on the semi, shutting myself back in. God. The thing's mouth widened into a bigger grin, exposing just how many razor-sharp teeth this thing has. I started the truck, thinking my only way out may be to run this thing over and head back to the dock where the coworkers were, as well as some more light. I guess this thing took the truck starting as a challenge, and it bolted towards me. Its movement was unnatural. It had this awkward gaze, but it's still faster than I had seen any human run. I slammed the gas pedal down and the truck took off. If you've ever seen someone try to gun a semi from idle when you know I wasn't going very fast at all. Just when I was about to hit this thing, it jumped to the side of the semi. And it darted into backlot 2 and jumped the fence with ease. I kept driving and pulled the truck up to our dock for the refuge of the warehouse. As I stepped out of the truck, I could hear a distorted howl from the distance. I quickly looked around the lot from the dock, but I couldn't see anything. Hopefully that's the last thing I see. No, that's the last I see of this thing. But I got into the office. My boss asked why I had brought the semi up to the dock. That's where I was supposed to leave, and I didn't feel safe going out and walking back. I couldn't tell him what I saw. He wouldn't believe me. I'm surprised if anyone believes me. I'm afraid to go back to work tonight. I can't even seem to go to sleep now. Every time I close my eyes, I see that grin.